Hello. Good morning, everyone. I am Brian Brinkman here from Osiris Media. Really excited to dive in again here. We've got our first and only weeknight runs. We've got a weeknight show next week, but overall, these are like our only Tuesday, Wednesday stops of Fall Tour 2021 here to talk about Fish, their West Coast Fall Tour, all stops leading to Las Vegas. I'm really excited to be chatting about last night's the first night in Eugene. Really interesting show. Some really fascinating moments that we're going to get into here with Ben Charlton here in a second. Before I do that, as I start every show, I want to remind listeners out there that this is HFPod on tour, presented by Shift Genuine Cannabis. We're so thankful for Shift Cannabis and their support of HF Pod on Tour. They're the reason that we've been back here for these last couple of months, both talking to you after shows, in between tours, on a weekly basis, so many different things, doing a few live shows. Shift has been a huge supporter and sponsor of HF Pod on Tour, and we're so thankful for them. Please visit shiftcannabis.com for all your cannabis needs. I also want to give a big shout out to our media partner at Jambase. As I say every week, and as I say every show, and I mean it, without Jambase, I don't know where Osiris Media would be. They've been such a huge supporter of us, getting the word out about what Osiris Media does from a podcasting standpoint, from an overall live show standpoint, from shows like this. There's so much support and love that we get from Jambase. So thank you to everyone over there. Please check out jambase.com for all your jam band music needs. With that, we're going to go ahead and get started here. Like I said, I've got Ben Charlton, who is going to be joining us to talk a bit about the first night in Eugene, kind of thoughts on where the band is at in the tour at this point in time, as well as talk a bit about his own Fish journey, which is really interesting. We were talking before we went live, and his time starting to see the band, as well as how he's seen them over the last 25 years, if you will, with a few breaks in there, is pretty fascinating to me. So without further ado, Ben, how are you, man?
Good, Brian. Thanks for having me. I appreciate you doing this with me on this gorgeous Pacific Northwest fall afternoon in Eugene.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. I'm so excited to talk. And yeah, we were talking before we went live. You are in Seattle. I used to live in Portland. I am very familiar with, like, this is such a golden period in time in the Pacific Northwest. I love it. And we all know that in exactly 11 days, the sun is going to go away until July 4th, and you will
Yeah,
be in
exactly. July
everything that
5th.
we know. Yeah, right, exactly. It comes out and you're like, oh my God, there it is again. I don't know what to do with myself. So enjoy it and savor it. And the fact that you've got some fish to add to it is pretty amazing.
It's absolutely perfect. We walked into the venue last night. It was, starting to get dark, but sunny still with a crisp, cool chill in the air. But we came out, it was wet and soggy.
Oh man, that's it. That's it right there. You know it's
Yeah,
coming back.
yeah.
Um, well, I'm really excited to talk with you. Last night's show was really fascinating, especially like a few song choices, a few jam choices, like where they're at in the tour at this point in time. It seems like they're starting to we can start to see a few trends emerge, which I kind of want to talk with you a bit about. But before we
Yeah.
do that, so you're based in Seattle. We were talking about this before we went live. Tell me when your first Fish show was, and kind of your early Fish experience, and kind of where you're at right now as a larger Fish listener.
Yeah, Brian, great question. I have an interesting past with fish. I grew up in Canada, and growing up, I started getting into music. In high school, I was into the rock and roll, like Led Zeppelin, Rolling Stones, Beatles. I grew up on that with my dad, who shared that with me, and then my friends. And then I didn't get into any jam related bands until Grateful Dead in high school, the tail end of high school, early to mid '90s. But I never got to see them. And a friend of mine introduced me to Fish and
Mm.
invited me to the show, which the show that I went to was in Vancouver in 1996 in that epic fall tour. I think it was 11/23/96, and it was a
Yeah.
cold intro. I had never heard them before. I had no idea what to expect, and that was an amazing start to my journey, and immediately got pretty into them. And I went to the following shows at the Gorge in '97, so there's 2 nights there, and then subsequently Gorge '98 for that amazing two night run as well there. And after that, I was finishing college. I went off to grad school. I became a chiropractor. So I went to school in Iowa, of
Mm,
all places. And I did not see fish during that time. I followed them, brief on the internet and everything else, and through some friends, but I actually didn't see them. And then I got back to Seattle after graduate school, started to settle down. I got married, had some kids, and I did not see fish again until 2011. So a
man.
huge hiatus for me.
Man, yeah, that's a window, and having a few chiropractors in the family, I can definitely understand that that is an all-consuming diversion in your life, which then adds to a lot of work, and then you have kids. I'm right there with you. Like that's reason enough in the mid 2000s to go with a fish hiatus of your own. But you came
Yeah.
back in 2011, and um, how have you found kind of the band's story and the band's journey to be since you came back and to where you're at right now? Kind of what are your thoughts in terms of their overall development, their overall evolution?
Right. Well, I've since 2011, I've been digging deeper and deeper into their music and following on .fish.net and podcasts like yourself now in the last few years in HFPod. Um, when I went in 2011, I didn't have any expectations. I knew, the first few years back, they were just feeling themselves out and trying to get back into that place where they hit actually eventually, as you say, at Dick's in 2012.
Yeah,
So I felt, and I've only done pretty much West Coast shows, Dick's West. So I've seen the progress and the evolution since 2011. Every time I've seen them, I could feel those jams getting deeper and more
yeah,
interesting. Song selections, everything just grown and grown. So I saw them at the Gorge after 2011 was 2013, Seattle 2014, Gorge
mm,
2016. All good shows, but nothing like it's been probably, I would say, for me since Dick's 2017. That night one
oh
at
yeah.
Dick's 2017 for me was just like, okay, this is next level, and it brought me back. It
Yeah.
brought me back to 7/17/98, which at that point was my
Okay.
my best live show I've ever been to, with that 4-song second set, which I'm still chasing. I miss San Francisco, so I'm bummed about that.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that since Dick's 2017, I've really been fully on board with, and 2018 was the most shows I'd seen in a year since that.
Okay.
As much as I can do, I have 5 kids, so
Wow.
my wife is great to me in finding that time to get away.
Yeah.
And coincidentally, it was her first show ever in Sacramento this past weekend, and that was cool. That brought it full circle for me, having her
Totally.
first show by myself in '96, and then she sees it in 2021. She's not a huge Fish fan. She went partly because she knows I love it, but she
Yeah.
actually enjoyed it.
Well, it's good. The support's there, and the fascinating thing about fish is like you never know what you're gonna get, and so you get
Right.
this 4-song second set in your fourth fish show. You're chasing it ever since. You miss it by 2 shows.
Yeah.
But your wife, her very first show, she gets a song that was recorded on the white
Right.
tape and has
Never
never
been
been
played.
played
Yeah.
since the recording. So like the odds of seeing something unique once in a career worthy is at stake pretty much in every single fish show. So
Yeah.
it's
It
it's
keeps us
it's
coming.
amazing like that. I was at San Francisco night one. I flew home to Denver here. um I, I have 2 kids, so at least I have 2 limbs for one kid. I don't know. I don't know what you're doing with the spare with the other kid out there. You guys can't even grab it. I don't.
Yeah, yeah, just free fend for themselves. I'm
They're
pretty
just
much an
running
Uber
around.
driver. Yeah,
Yeah, right. um, but I flew home and I was watching the show on the webcast, and I was like, "Yep, I saw a great show on Saturday, and I miss a 4-song second set.
right.
Such is fish." So,
Yeah,
well, that's amazing. I appreciate you sharing it. It's interesting. Like, I walked into the San Francisco show on Saturday, and I snapped a picture from my seat, sent it to a bunch of buddies, most of whom only see East Coast shows, and we're 20
yeah,
minutes from the band walking on stage, 10 minutes past ticket time. And their first reaction was, "There's nobody there." And I was like, "Well, yeah, this is West Coast Fish. It's a very
right.
slow entrance." And
Hmm.
I've got to imagine, so you said you've seen most of your shows are Dick's and West. Have you
Yeah,
seen
like
anything on the East Coast like your
nothing. Yeah,
MSGs? Wow.
none of it.
Wow.
I've done pretty much like Seattle, Gorge, California, Vegas, and Dick's. That's it. in terms of the West. Yeah.
I mean, obviously it's Fish. It's fascinating, the two different vibes of the band. I think that it's cool that you've been able to see them in what always ends up being kind of a more laid back, um but in some way, and in some ways that pays off better, when they
Mhm.
play on the West Coast. Sometimes they're in a vibe that they match
Yeah,
the fans. We were talking before we went
absolutely.
live that you saw the Gorge shows this summer. I think that we're both on the same page, that we both loved the first night of the Gorge. I saw it from home, you saw it in the
Yeah.
venue, but like that is a West Coast Fish show to me, where the band
Yeah,
is
I
just
live for that show. That was
right.
that set, that 827 set 2
Yeah.
was like, I have issues with Chop, who doesn't like that show as much. But,
Yeah.
he's a great guy.
No.
But that show was just everything, that the energy and the West Coast laid back vibe and the spaciness of that show, the non-peaking jamming was just, that's what I live for. And
Yeah.
we got a little bit of that last night in certain ways, but it was definitely a different show last night.
It was, yeah, and let's talk about it. So we
Yeah.
get to last night's. The band has played 3 shows thus far. I think 3. I'd be curious your thoughts on this. Like, from my perspective, the first 3 shows of the weekend were both unified and very different at the same time. Friday, you get this kind of smattering song ideas, and who knows exactly what direction we're going in.
Right.
Some really, really cool moments, but it
Yeah.
kind of felt like just let's see what works.
Agreed.
Saturday felt hyper connected. It was like a fusion of a rock show and a jam show in the best way possible. And Sunday felt very heady and contemplative to me. And
Mhm.
among all of them, you got a ton of highlights. So did you hear anything different, or was that kind of what your thoughts were going into this show?
Yeah, that's exactly my thoughts going into this show. I felt the same way. Sacramento was a mixed bag. It was a great show. It was a real fun time to be there, and different
Totally.
song placements and bust outs and things like that. But yeah, a little bit up and down in terms of flow for sure.
Yeah.
And then I listened to the San Francisco shows, and they had such cohesion and such great flow and gorgeous jams, especially the contemplative Sunday night, of course, which is kind of more my taste. Um, I would say that last night probably had a little of all those 3 shows combined
Yeah.
in it. It was a mix of all those 3 shows. The difference, I would say, is the first set had amazing flow. The first set was a great set. Starting off with that disease, it set the tone. And I think my friend actually texted me after the show, and she reminded me that it was I might be mistaken here, but the longest opener ever in the history of the band. It eclipsed, I think, the Zepp Japan disease by about a minute, if I'm
I
not
think you
mistaken.
I think you may be right. I just pulled up on Twitter. So Scott Marks at Biz Archive tweeted
Okay.
earlier this morning, 38 years, 1,891 shows. Fish has opened a show with a song exceeding 20 minutes 6 times.
Okay.
Last night was the first time this happened in 18 years. You've got the July 1st, 97 Ghost, July 20th, 98 Bathtub Gin, July twenty
Yeah.
ninth, 98 Bathtub Gin, the Zepp 6/10/2000 Down with Disease, July 23rd, 2003 Sense and Subtle Sounds, and the October 19th, 21 Down with Disease. I think that you're right. I think
Yeah.
that the Zepp Down with Disease was about 25 minutes compared to this one.
Yeah.
But I mean, they open with a 25-minute jam. I'm just like searching for the words,
Oh,
but you were
yeah.
there. Tell me what this is like in the venue.
Well, the venue, okay, first of all, that venue, I've never been to Eugene before for the venue,
Okay.
which, as if anyone who's listening knows, it was before the Matthew Knight Arena. It was MacArthur Court, which is his fabled venue for the Grateful Dead. So
Oh wow.
driving down, I was listening to that show, the January 22nd, 1978 Grateful Dead show, which is famous for the Close Encounters Jerry Jam into like the most melodic peaking Saint Stephen I think I've ever heard.
Oh man.
So I was trying to channel Jerry,
Yeah.
and
You're
those
getting in
vibes
the
of
vibe.
coming down. I want to hear some kind of alien alien action from Fish last night because of that. And we got it into the disease. I made some notes, and at 18 to 19 minutes, I put aliens are back, harkens back to the 78 Dead. But between that and the bliss, that melodic peaks that we had at like the 12-minute mark, and then after that were some Allman Brothers.
Yeah.
I haven't listened to the show since, so I'm just going off my in moment notes. They had some Allman Brothers kind of sounding peaks, just absolutely gorgeous. But that the crowd just pushed and swelled through that jam the entire time. There were a lot of moments when it sounded like it might have been fizzling a little bit, or it was
Hmm.
coming close
Hmm.
to finishing, and the crowd was just pushing Trey on and pushing the band on. It was exactly like you said, like a West Coast show. It was, I would say, the floor was half empty at the start at the very start of the show, but it just, as West Coast shows do, it just starts to fill. And it was a really cozy venue. I liken it to just a little bit bigger Bill Graham. It had that
Okay.
same kind of feel. The floor itself almost looked like a square. There was only three sections back from the front, so it was
Wow.
very intimate. It felt like the light rig almost was on top of the entire floor when it came down. That's how
Oh
far.
man,
That's how far it came out.
I love that.
So yeah, that Down with Disease, that start was, I was like, wow, is this a harbinger? I was thinking, wow, is this going to be a 4 or 5 song first set based on that?
Totally.
And but it
Yeah.
was a great flow, great flowing first set. It felt very 90s to me. It had a very 1.0 vibe. I think besides the Ocelot and this closing Walls of the Cave, which of course is 2.0, everything else was, we're talking early to mid 90s in terms of the song selection. It flowed really well.
Yeah, it's a really good point. Like when you throw in Jim, Rift, Horn, Yamar, you're talking like pre 1993 Fish in a lot of cases where it just
Yeah.
sounds. And Ocelot is a song to me. I mean, you talk about the Grateful Dead vibes. It's interesting you
Yeah.
talk about that '78 show because I had a buddy who was there, and literally around that time, I sent him just a GIF of the Close Encounters spaceship landing. I had the exact
There you
same
go.
feeling. I was just like, this doesn't happen 19 minutes into most concerts. But
Yeah.
Ocelot has always struck me as like a first set Grateful Dead, kind of just slow, like trot in a lot of cases. And it seemed to work really well in that spot.
Yes.
The first set kind of reminded me of some of those 98 shows that I was reading off where they would open with a big jam, usually a bathtub gin, and then they would go into a few more standard songs because it's a rock show and they want to
Yeah.
play a few of these songs. They need to get them in the rotation. And those songs always kind of are informed by the jam that began this set. And so as a result, sure, there wasn't as much like jamming post the disease in set one, but I thought it worked well. And I think it sounds like you felt like there was good flow in that set overall.
Absolutely. Yeah, it worked
Yeah.
really well. It's interesting, the Ocelot, that's a good example of something that back if they played it in the 2011 shows that I was at, or 2013, you would just expect the standard, not that it was bad, but a standard Ocelot. Last night, I think it's where the band is right now and where the audience is, and the entire vibe, you could feel like anything can go anywhere any minute, and that
Yeah.
confidence that you can feel from the band, and also like just from the crowd, like the confidence in this selection. It doesn't matter what song it's going to be, which is, I know it's like typical to say that, but it's true. It's like that Ocelot started, and I was like, well, here we go. Like the tab show showed where that could go as well, and it was a
Totally.
great version. And you're right, there wasn't anything massive jammed out outside of the disease. Well, the Stash did, actually. The Stash was amazing. And I thought they were going to close with that Stash, actually, but then we got, obviously, Trey had his emotional, response to the events happened in San Francisco, which was fitting. And it was really well said, and there was not a dry eye in that house last night from that. I can tell you that.
Nor on my couch.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and I'm glad they addressed it that way. It was a fit. I wasn't sure at the beginning of the show. I thought they would do something, but I wasn't sure if they were going to speak or if they were going to say it through the music, through certain songs. But I'm glad they did that. And then, a huge Walls of the Cave to close is always a good way to go out in the first set.
Yeah, and I appreciate you speaking about it the way that you did. I mean, I think, and I appreciate the way the band did as well. Like, I think it was much more fitting than like an Instagram caption of like
Right.
we're sad, and it was mid show, which is the thing that we all chase. No
Yeah.
matter what our experience is with this band, the goal is being inside of the show.
Right.
The band could break up tomorrow and I could listen to Fish for the rest of my life and have some semblance of happiness. But like at the end of the day, if I never got to see a Fish show again, like that's what I'm going for, and that's what we're all here for. So for him to dedicate time in the show that way, and reiterate the idea that we're just four guys up on stage, but we're a part of this community, and
Yeah,
that's pretty amazing. And Walls of the Cave closing out was emotionally a fitting song for that moment. I thought that was a great call.
yeah, I agree with that. And you could feel the emotion in Trey. You could see it, and it was very quiet in there too, very respectful. And I'm glad they addressed it that way for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. Um, so we go from set one into the second set, which they come out and they open up with Twist, which is always going to be one of my favorite. It's never usually used as a second set opener, but I
Right.
really love when it's in this place because it's such a eerie, kind of creaky way of getting back in. You don't have like a big first riff like Tweezer. You
Yeah.
don't have like, the Down with Disease bass swell where like the noise
Right.
just like envelops the room. You just kind of slowly fade into there. And this twist went in some really cool directions. What were your thoughts on this?
Yeah, this twist was, besides the disease, this was my favorite jam of the night for sure. I agree with
Same.
you. I agree with you 100%. The start of it was a little slower than normal. It was
Yeah.
real, like, drawn out, really. Yeah, it was a very good start. It reminded. I was actually thinking when they started, I was like, man, they don't open with twists many times in the second set, and I know Fukuoka didn't open with twist and opened it back on the train, but I was feeling that vibe when it
Got that
started. It's like
vibe.
you got that vibe. Um, and it was a really good jam. It was Trey got a little crunchy with his guitar sound, kind of like a 46 days sound into it right after the
Yes.
twist vocals, and the interplay between Paige and Trey and that was just unreal. It was and then he got into that machine sound from that last night at Dick's this year. It was a really, really good jam. Some people are kind of bummed out that they brought it back to twist at the end after only 15 minutes, but I thought it was I thought it was perfect. It was definitely my highlight of the second set, and probably my favorite jam of the night besides the disease opener for sure. Um, that the energy when they started, even though it was like a slower start, so to speak, was still very high. It continued since the first set. The first set, like I said, with that amazing flow, the energy was off the charts in Eugene. It was much more energetic than I would say Sacramento was, although it was good at Sacramento. I think it was just a combination of the midweek and Eugene and a smaller venue, a little more intimate. Um,
Yeah, I think that
yeah,
last part, like these two venues that they started the tour at, Sacramento and San Francisco, these are true modern build NBA
yeah,
stadiums that like they're beautiful. And being in the Chase Center, like where I was sitting, the sound was perfect.
yeah.
It reminded me a lot of, there's a venue here in Denver called the Mission Ballroom that's
Okay,
it's a big theater. It fits 5 to 6 thousand people, I want to say, but it's
okay,
built to feel like a small arena. So
yeah,
you have the best of both worlds, where like a band gets that energy of almost feeling like they're playing an arena, but the sound feels much smaller, like a theater.
yes,
And I felt that in the Chase Center, where I was like, oh my God, this place is massive, but somehow we're able to hear the band with such precision. But that said, those two stadiums are huge. They're cavernous in a lot of cases. They are
yeah,
new. The band doesn't know them. They've played Matthew Knight before. It's a
hmm,
smaller, it could be um a college basketball gym that they play in Dayton, Ohio, or
right,
in Hershey,
absolutely.
Pennsylvania. And so like I think for them it almost made them feel a little more comfortable from the start.
Yeah, absolutely. And and talking about the sound, it was dialed in as well. It was really good sound. Sacramento sound I thought was really good, but this was next level. So I think you're right. I think the coziness of that building, like I said, it to me honestly, it felt just like the Bill Graham, just a little bit
Mm,
bigger. I know obviously
mm.
it's a newer venue, but it had that same real intimate feeling in those different sight lines. Just like a shallow upper level, barely one at all, and then just a floor essentially. So, um, but the energy, like I said, in set two, carried in through the twist into the blaze. It was good. It was a great start. Trey started and Mike started teasing that plasma riff, which they'd done already in Sacramento. So I thought
Yeah.
they were gonna tease it just a little bit, throughout that jam, and then Trey gave a look over to Mike and dove into it, which I'm never going to complain. Plasma was a great song. It's awesome.
It's a
But
great
at that
groove.
point out, great
And it
groove. Yeah.
debuted in that arena
Right. In
7 years ago.
2014. Yeah. In
Yeah, yeah.
2014, almost to the day, 7 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. They had that great cross side then too.
Oh my
So
God.
yeah, amazing. So at that point of the show, it was really good. Second set was grooving along. Everyone was jamming. Everyone was grooving hard, dancing. It was a good energy. This is where it turned a little bit for me. I'm not saying it was a poor show at all. It wasn't at all. When they hit Leaves, Leaves is a great, gorgeous song. I absolutely love Leaves. It just felt at that point in that show, in the moment, I might feel differently when I listen back. It didn't feel that felt like that was the breather, so to speak, at that point.
Sure.
And it didn't feel like they needed one at that point.
Sure.
For some
Sure.
reason, I look back at the time setting, and it said, it was pretty much 30 minutes of music until up to that point of the Leaves. So in standard and normal, that would be a normal spot for a breather. But for some reason, in the energy in that room last night, it didn't feel like that was the moment they needed that breather. It's hard to explain, but
No, I get exactly what you're saying, and I felt the exact same way from the couch. I think it kind of gets to what we were talking about earlier. Like the two of us really like the Gorge Night one,
yeah,
which is a show that like I can't really explain, and I don't think anybody can really explain like flow. Like
yeah,
like you just feel it and it's either happening or it's not. We talked
yeah,
about this on the past HFPod episode when we were talking about a show from Merriweather 2000 that goes like rock and roll, theme from the bottom, dog log, mango, I think free closes it out. And
okay,
those are like 5 songs you're never gonna, I don't care who you are or how big, like, and this is something that Fish does so well, but like you could make your dream set list. It's probably never going to look like that. But
yeah,
somehow in that moment with the music that they were playing, it just works. It
yeah,
flows. Perhaps in a different setting or or with different transitions or a little bit more breathing room in this jam versus this jam, this second set could have worked. But I agree with you. By the time like Plasma is now becoming this thing where it almost reminds me of where Party Time was a
Party.
few years
I was just
ago,
gonna say it was a party time feel again.
where it's just like they find the groove. It's a very easy groove to find,
Yeah,
and then they drop into it. And okay, cool. I love the song. I think it's got a great, groove to it. The lyrics are cool, but
yeah,
it does seem to divert from that overt attempt to improvise. And
right,
sometimes they need
absolutely,
that, but it definitely gave this kind of middle portion of the second set a okay, we're gonna play this song now, and then we're gonna play this song, and it didn't feel like it got back on track in the same way that Saturday night in San Francisco did, or Sunday night in San Francisco did. Which, to be fair, those are two very special shows, so it's rare that those things happen. But
right.
I'm curious. It sounds like you felt that inside as well.
Yeah, I felt like like I said, like Leaves is I love Leaves. It's a great song, and I saw it
Totally
at the
agree.
yeah, I saw it at the Gorge in the first set. I thought that placement was
Yeah,
perfect. It was after I
yeah,
think No Man's Land
yes.
on that first night, and that was a
Kind of
perfect
helped set
spot
the
for it.
tone that night in a cool way.
Exactly help set the
Yeah.
tone, and I just think flow wise and position wise, it just wasn't the best fit last night. Um, but hey, it's Fish. It happens sometimes. It just goes that way, and I'm sure other people think it was the perfect placement.
Totally. Yeah. And I mean, this is the fascinating thing about it is like, I think some nights it works
Yeah,
and some nights something doesn't work. And I find the parts where it doesn't work to be almost in a lot of cases just as interesting because they're just, they're literally making this up as it goes along.
right.
And that really shines a light into like how challenging it is to craft a really, really high quality second set.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say that I noticed the difference right away between the first set, which I said was littered pretty much with 1.0 songs and that kind of really early 90s vibe. And that plus that contributing to the flow, I think, into this set, which besides the starting of the twist was almost and besides the twist in 2001 was pretty much all 3.0 slash 4.0 with the debut of I've Never Left Home. So it was a very big
Interesting.
contrast you
Yeah.
could feel in flow and energy and set song selection for the
Yeah.
two sets last night, which is interesting. It was cool.
Yeah, no, it's interesting when they're pushing deliberately pushing new stuff versus old stuff because right
Yeah,
now I'm kind of in favor of them pushing new stuff. It seems to
yeah,
be where their heads are at,
absolutely.
but it didn't work as well. Like the first set worked really well with a lot of old school stuff.
Yeah.
I'm curious your thoughts on the debut of "I Never Left Home."
Well, I'd never heard it before, so I was
Okay.
completely in the dark. The friend who I was with had said they played it on Tab, I think, but I'm not or maybe the um, last year the shows in 2020 at the Beacon. So I was not familiar with it all, but I liked it. It got a little alien like with Page's synth sound, and I liked it. It has definite potential. I would say. I think it was only what, like 5 minutes last night, or
Yeah.
5 to 6 minutes, but I think that song could go deep for sure. Like, I think it has some great potential.
Yeah, I kind of feel like they had to just play it because
Yeah,
it seems like rhythmically a little bit of a challenging song to play live. But
yeah.
now that they've played it, I was right there with you. The way it faded out before it went into Sparkle, I was like, there's something here. Throw
Hmm.
this as like the second song of a second set coming out of a jam, and you've got another jam coming right after it. That would be really cool.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So I would say that if you want to break it up into quarters, that second quarter with I guess the plasma into leaves into I've Never Left Home, the energy, it was good, but the energy was definitely not the way it was in the first set and the beginning of
Mhm.
the second set. Sparkle brought the energy obviously up just because, people are dancing and having a good time at Sparkle. But 2001, the energy came back in a huge way. Like, I don't think
Yeah.
I've heard that crowd respond to a song like that in a long, well, maybe besides like a Carini late or something like that. But the crowd went absolutely bananas for that 2001 is interesting too. The woman who was sitting behind us, she was from Seattle. She came down for the show, and we were asking her at the beginning of the show what she'd want to hear tonight. The one thing she said was a jammed out 2001,
Woo.
old school jammed out
Yeah. Oh
2001.
yeah.
And this felt like that. This was,
Yeah.
I think, 13 and a half, almost 14 minutes. I think it was the longest one. There was one in Mexico that was close, but I think besides that, I was reading it was the longest one since, like, I think Japan 2000 again, which is
Yeah.
insane.
Yeah.
It definitely harkened back to that 98 Gorge one that I've seen. It went back, it went into the, the peak of it. What do you want to call that? The chorus, I guess.
Sure.
Uh, no singing, but
Yeah, yeah.
it went into that pretty early after the first maybe 3 or 4 minutes. So sometimes when they do that in shows past, like I've seen them at the Gorge before, or in the early 3.0, it would be 4, 5, 6 minutes. So
Yeah.
when they came into that early, like, I was like, okay, well, maybe this is going to be another shorter one. But then between that one and the next chorus, they stretched it out long, and some really good interplay with the band, some really cool kind of funk groove. The lighting, of course, was amazing for that. Of course, Crota was just killing it.
It's so interesting, like the development of Fish songs now that we're, you know, if if thinking back to when they came back in 2009, we're 12 years into this whole
Yeah,
journey, obviously with a break because of the pandemic, but like, I think when they came back in 2009 and because the kind of resetting the foundation took longer than I think many people wanted
hmm,
and more longer than some people expected as well. We kind of have this like established idea that the way that they played some of these songs in 2009 to call it 2013,
all right,
2016, I don't know, pre-Baker's Dozen is
yeah,
how they were going to always play these songs. And 2001
right,
was one of those songs that like it was like, okay, this is no longer a jam vehicle. This is
yeah,
a high energy transitional piece from this area part of the set to this part of the set. And now, the band, I think about the version from the Met in 2019 that went, I think, around 11, maybe 12 minutes.
yeah,
It was one of those examples of like the groove based jamming and the effects that the band has now and the toys that they're playing with cater to 2001 in a way that their sound just didn't in say 2010. And so like
absolutely.
to your point, like yeah, we're hearing them stretch out that mid segment of the song in a way
Hmm.
that they did in 1998 because
Yeah,
in a lot of cases, their sound has that like bulbous, dancey energy that you got in 1998. It's just wild to hear them circle back to that in a way that I never expected.
Yeah, it's unreal. Kind of similar to with Tube as well, and just the
Yes.
and this and Trey's and Page's new instruments in this is just it just makes for like such a wild ride and something that I like I said I agree I didn't expect that I'm not sure why Fish never ceases to amaze us and surprise us. So why am I
Totally.
thinking that they're going to play 2001 the same for the last 12 years? I have
Totally.
no idea, but very happy nonetheless. And I don't know, and I'm sure you could check on this for me one another time maybe, but I cannot think of a 2001 that was unfinished. I usually they will always finish that song with that peak.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
last night, I couldn't believe it. I was like, whoa. And it was a cool transition, a little bit abrupt, but it was cool into Sigma Oasis,
Yeah.
which is fitting. They're loving Sigma Oasis right now. You can just see Trey. He's just happy,
Yeah.
happy playing that song. And it was a great closer. I was also I forgot to touch on this, but Trey, I noticed last night that I don't always notice, but he was really into, well, he was happy as usual himself, but he was really looking around at the crowd last night more than I've seen him do in years. He was even like, I know he focuses a lot on the, on the rail and the people at the front, but he was looking very intently and specifically at the people up in the rafters. And I'm not sure if that has anything to do with what happened in San Francisco or not. I don't know. He was kind of giving more attention, energy to the room last night than I have seen him do in a long time. It was
It's an
interesting.
interesting way to think about it. Like I feel in some cases like the band I feel like ever since they came back in 2009, there was a realization of we have to show as much appreciation and support and love and care for this community as possible because they could have left us. There's no
Right.
reason why we announce we're back in October 2008 and tickets sell out in a second. I mean, we all
Right.
get why, but like, career wise, it's a huge risk to tell your fans we're done and then come back 5 years later and hope that everybody, just comes back on board. People have lives.
Right. Yeah.
They've gone and done all this other stuff. So like, I feel like it's this ongoing evolution and development. Like I felt it throughout a lot of summer tour where the band seemed to really appreciate like, wow, we lost this and we didn't even choose to lose it. The first two
Yeah.
times we took a break. This was
Right.
the time it was ripped away from us. But
Right.
I've got to imagine in a sense, and if it's, you know, if there's any, I don't want to put it like that, but like I've got to imagine that coming out of what happened on Sunday night, the band hearing that post show, the band absorbing that information, the band saying something to the fans, that there is a sense of like everyone in here, every single
Yeah.
person in here is experiencing this and is a part of this, and that acknowledgement is sincere coming from the band.
Yeah. I wholeheartedly agree. I think maybe that was part of what I was feeling with that. The way it
And
was Trey
Sigma
was
Oasis
acknowledging
is
that.
kind of like one of the perfect songs to get that vibe from. You're already there. Like you're
Absolutely.
here, man. You're with us. We're with you. We're all Trey said it during the acoustic show on the Tab tour when Russ went out. He said, "We're all here." It's not you came to see me. It's we are
Right.
all here. And then we all came here together. And so I
Yeah.
always get that vibe from Sigma Oasis.
Yeah. It was. Yeah. That was the vibe I felt too. Absolutely. And then to carry over into the encore with Drift, I felt
Yeah.
that same vibe. Same vibe. And that
Yeah.
was a cool way to close it. Same closer as Gorge the first night in the Gorge this year too.
Good
And
call.
yeah, and it was good. It was a great show. I was expectations like you always talk about. They're tough. I was after that after that San Francisco weekend. I was like, okay, what's Eugene got in store? And it was a great show. Um, but yeah, that disease opener. I mean, I'll keep coming back to that for a long time. I have a few people who are friends of mine that have hit every show in the summer. They're hitting every show in the fall, and they've said that was one of their favorite jams they've seen. Actually, that disease.
Yeah, and I mean, it's an interesting thing. You talk about expectations, you talk about like placement and stuff, and I'm right
Yeah.
there with you. Like it's impossible not to. Like I do everything I can to walk into a Fish show being like, I don't care what song
Right.
they play.
Right.
I There's going to be a moment where I'm like, I don't know if I would have wanted to hear that right now, or like, oh
Yeah.
my god, I can't believe they're playing this. So like it
Yeah.
happens to everyone.
Absolutely.
I think it's interesting to look at this show and think what does it look like if, say, the Down with Disease opens the second set, and
Right,
rather than Twist opening the show, Blazon opens the show, and you get that
right,
first set, or the second set is the first set, Twist somewhere in the second set, and the second set opens with that Disease.
right.
Honestly, in some cases, like, that's a more traditional structure. I don't know if that's I think it's a more interesting show the way that it was played,
Yeah,
because
I agree.
you have this shock value of, they're okay, cool, Disease, killer, amazing. They
Yeah,
haven't played it yet this tour. Okay, they're jamming Disease, cool. It's not just gonna be a type 1 rockin' Disease. Okay, now we're 15 minutes into
yeah,
Down with Disease, and it's not showing any signs of letting up. Oh my god, they just played a 25-minute set opener.
yeah.
That
Unbelievable.
sentiment adds to and colors the show, no matter what comes next, in a way.
Absolutely, and it definitely fits with the tone that he set with the fall tour, with kind of odd placements for openers,
Yes.
or the Harry Hood at in the second slot in Sacramento, which I know they've done before, but that's
But it's
rare. But
yeah.
it's and just
Slave to
yeah,
the traffic light midway
Slave to the
through the
Traffic,
first
yeah,
set.
Slave,
Yeah.
Squirming Coil, and then
Yeah.
like we've had the Sand and Carini encores, and
Yeah.
so it definitely goes with that. It just shows again how confident I think they are, and how
Yeah.
much they're listening to each other right now, and they just feel like they really are at a place where they can play anything at any time and anywhere. Frankie
Yeah.
says, like, it just I felt that energy and felt that confidence that I definitely didn't feel, like, like you said, obviously when they're feeling their way out in early 3.0. So it's a good time to be a fan, and it's a good time to be in the band.
It's a good way to put it. And I think, yeah, it's something that feels like a larger theme of the tour thus far. And it'll be interesting to see where it goes,
Yeah,
and you've got to imagine from the band's perspective. I don't know how many tours they've played since 2009. It's above 20, 25 at this point in time. And you've got to imagine at a certain point, like, there was a lot of structure inherently in place with early 3.0 tours, and they've
right.
abandoned that structure slowly but surely since like 2015. um and it seems like this tour so far, 4 shows in, is kind of where the band is saying, to your point, if why don't we try to put this song that always goes
Yeah,
here, and just see how it impacts the show. And that is something that is, I've been loving it so far. I
me
loved
too.
the way
Yeah.
that it impacted last night's show, and I'm really excited to hear how it impacts tonight's show.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel they're very conscious about that for sure. They're like, let's
Yeah.
try this here, let's try that there, which I don't think they've, like, it doesn't feel like they've done that in a long time, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you kind of have to, and this is blasphemous for me to say, so I understand what I'm doing here, but you kind of have to go back to like 1997, 1998,
Yeah.
where they said,
Maybe maybe
let's blow up the
maybe
spot.
maybe winter 2003, maybe
Yes. Yeah.
around
Yeah.
there.
Good call.
Yeah,
Good call.
right. But
Yeah. Like
yeah,
those tours where it was kind of like, let's just blow up what normally happens at a show and see where
yeah,
we go.
yeah. Like I think they had what, like in Vegas in 2003, 2003, like David Bowie opener, like things
Yeah.
like that, which was kind of blown up from the traditional way they would do it. So yeah,
Absolutely.
I feel like we're at those times again. It's cool.
Yeah. It's wild. It's one time to be a Fish fan.
It is. Can't wait for tonight.
I know. So you're going tonight.
Yeah, I'm going tonight, and I know you're going soon to the West Coast runs too, right?
I fly down to Phoenix, what, tomorrow? Yeah, wow. Tomorrow's Thursday.
Yeah.
I fly down to Phoenix tomorrow. Gonna get a good night's sleep in a hotel. Hopefully a good night's sleep. I
Yep.
decided I would not travel on the show day because I wanted to just get in, be
Fair enough.
settled. I'm gonna see a couple friends in Phoenix, and then I'm doing Phoenix, Chula, and LA, fly
Right.
back, and then my wife is doing Vegas. So a
Perfect.
lot of shows on the docket. I know you don't want to walk in with expectations, but is there any song that
Mm.
you're hoping to hear tonight?
Well, I would like to hear No Man in No Man's Land, actually. They haven't,
Good
it
call.
feels like they haven't played it for a while. So I know it's been obviously a short fall tour so far, but I can't remember the last time they played it, end of summer sometime.
I'm gonna look it
But
up because I know that they played at the Gorge, but I'm
did they play? Yeah,
wondering.
did they play it at Dick's? I don't think they did, right?
I don't. I don't recall it offhand. I'm just gonna pull it up here really
Yeah.
quickly while we have
I
it.
just feel like we're due for a nice No Man, so I'd be down with that.
Yeah, no, the last version was the Gorge, and so
Yeah, that's been a while.
it's been what, 4, 7, it's been 11 shows since it was played,
Right.
which as I'm looking at
For
their
that song, that seems like a long gap for that song.
the only longer gap is only because of the Baker's Dozen. Is
Right.
they played it on the tour opener. They opened the second set of the tour opener of 2017 in
Okay.
Chicago with it,
Okay.
and then they didn't play it again until I think that's Lemon Night, August 4th,
Okay.
2017. That was a
Okay.
14-show gap, but
Only
everything
because of the
outside of
dozen.
that,
Yeah.
only because of the dozen, everything
Yeah.
outside of that is like maybe a 7-show gap here and there, but like on the
Right.
whole, it's not. Yeah, that's a. I would be shocked if you didn't hear that tonight. And
Yeah,
that
I'd
is
love
a
to hear
song
that.
that can either be 10 minutes long and just raging and it just crushes you, or it can
Yes.
be 25 minutes long and it goes into
Yeah.
interstellar space.
I think that song fits exactly right now with what we were talking about song placement, because I feel that that song can go anywhere, and like
Yeah.
you said, it can be a 10-minute rocker that has like just outrageous energy, or it can fit, Dick's Night 1, 2017,
Set through opener. Yeah.
first song, 25-minute long, like just
Yeah.
spacey exploration. So I'm excited to maybe hear that, and I would always like to see a Mike song.
There you go. There you go. And I don't think
Yeah.
we haven't seen Mike's yet this tour. So
No.
I think you're in for a good space. I'm at the point now like where I was at during the Shoreline run where I was like, okay, every song that's played, I'm not going to hear this weekend. So, but
Right.
I'm
Right.
hoping, knowing that like song selection doesn't seem to really matter right now.
Yeah.
I'm cool. Like play whatever you guys want. I hope that you get a
Yeah.
great show tonight.
Absolutely. Thank you. And thanks for having me on this. It's been fun.
Absolutely, Ben. This was awesome to talk with you, and enjoy the show tonight. Enjoy the lingering days of fall and sunshine in the Pacific Northwest, and hopefully we get to do this again soon. I'd love to run into you at a show here in the near future.
Absolutely. I'll look out for you.
Awesome, Ben. Well,
Thanks, Brian.
have a great night. Get back home safe tomorrow. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. We'll talk.
Bye.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much to Ben Charlton. That was an awesome conversation talking through night one in Eugene. Really fascinating show. I'd love to hear your thoughts out there in the world about kind of what you guys thought about it. I think it was, a slight sidestep in some cases from what we've heard, but in a really, really fascinating way. And I think that the jams that we heard really speak to where the strengths are on this tour. So very, very excited to hear tonight in Eugene. And then I will be on tour this weekend. RJ will be hosting a few of the shows this weekend. I'll guest on a few of them to kind of give my thoughts about, I think, Chula and LA. So really, really, really excited to talk through this. One more time before I roll, HFPod on Tour is presented by Shift Genuine Cannabis. Please visit shiftcannabis.com for all your cannabis needs here in the state of Colorado. And a huge shout out to our media partner. I don't know exactly what happened there, but I'm still going live, so I'm just going to roll with it. Huge shout out to our media partner at Jambase. Thank you so much for all your support, your attention to Osiris Media here from Jambase. So thank you, everyone. Apologies for the last minute tech glitch, but thanks as well to Ben Charlton. Amazing conversation. Awesome to hang with him. We will be back tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern. 10 a.m. Pacific for those of you watching from the West Coast and everything in between to talk through night 2 at Eugene. Really excited to hear what the band has in store for us here. Take care of everyone out there. Take care of yourself. Be safe. Be filled with love and light, as Trey would tell you to do. Look forward to talking with you all here as the tour unfolds. Take care. Bye-bye.